Hi, I'm Shawn Bland at the Art Center of Wilmington Island. We're so glad to offer a way to stay connected and continue creating art. Check out our new list of art at home kits for both kids and adults, available for curbside pickup and mail order. Keep visiting our Facebook page and website to see the latest options. We will post them as quickly as we can make them. Each kit contains everything you need to complete a beautiful painting at home: a pre-sketched canvas, an inspiration picture, paint and brushes, a palette, and a link to watch a tutorial to follow along. All you need to provide is the paper towels and a rinse cup for brushes. Now that you have your supplies, it's time to watch a step-by-step tutorial. Time to paint. Today we're going to start with a painting that's called the Ocean View. So we're going to begin with a sky and the sea in the background, and then we'll come up through the foreground and have the sand, and then we'll add the sea oats. So the first color that I'm going to get on my brush is called Cerulean Blue. We're going to add that blue in with the white and make it a good bit lighter. We'll add just a little color to mostly white, and that way we can get what we need for this background space. So you can see with this brush what we're going to do is we're going to make the sky and the clouds all just about at the same time with this brush. And you can see how I'm using the side of the brush, and as I go across the top, I'm going to fill up all of my space, and then as I move down towards the water, I'm going to let this brush just make the clouds for me. I'm going to do a little scrubbing with the white. As you can see, that just puts in my clouds exactly where I want them to go. And you can see that it is very simple to make the sky with the clouds if you use this brush and you use the cerulean mixed in with the white. I don't over mix on my palette. I'm just taking the cerulean and the white, and as I come over here to pick up the color to load my brush with, I don't pre-mix. I just pick up a little on each side of the brush, and then as I go back and forth on the canvas, you can see every one of the brush strokes that I make create the clouds for me. So that's what you want your brush to do. You want it to do the work for you. So as I pick up white and blue, you can see if you start at the top and just come all the way down to the water with that same stroke coming back and forth, you can get that feel of the clouds coming right out of your background space. So easy. So now we're going to go in and we're going to do the water in a different way so that we can have the look of the water being still and out in the ocean. So I'm going to go over and change, and this time I'm going to go to my darker blue, which is my ultramarine blue. So the first one you used was the lighter blue, and this one's darker because we want the ocean water to look darker. We also want it to have a grayish purple tone to it. So with your ultramarine blue, this time I'm going to add a dot of red, and you can see when I do that I get a color that's in the purple family. And so that's the base of the color that we're going to have for this ocean. Now we don't want it to look very bright, so we're also going to dull it down just a little bit with a yellow color that we make by mixing the yellow and the red together, which is sort of an orangey color. So we've got a good many color mixtures going in here, but that's what makes this picture so exciting, is that we can have all of those colors and create such a colorful painting with just a few colors. So I'd like to state again the color combinations and how you make them, and then I'll show you how to use the brush to put them on there. So we're going to start with the ultramarine blue, and we want it to look purpley looking. So we're going to add the red into it. And when we do that, if we add blue and red together, of course, we do get a purple. Now this purple that we get when we just add the red and the blue together is dark-ish, and it's too dark for the painting. So I want to lighten it up. So to do that, what I'd like to do is go in and add a combination or a mixture of the red and yellow together. And that's a brownish color when you put that together with the purple that's already on your brush. Then all we have to do is add a little white to it, and that will lighten it, but it will certainly give us the color that we want for the water. But you can see how nice it's gonna look with all of those colors mixed together. That's what makes such a beautiful painting. It's not just one flat color, it's a combination of all of these colors. So I don't like to pre-mix on the palette. I like to have all of the colors show up in each brush stroke that I make. So you can see as I turn my brush, a little of the cerulean came out that I had in there from my sky. So that's a wonderful thing to happen because of the reflections in the water. So now I have a little bit of the cerulean. I have the purpley color that I want to show the depth of the water. And then I'm gonna have the color that we made with yellow and red mixed right in, so that way it dulls the color and tones it down so it's not too bright. So I'm just using the brush, I'm using the full width of the brush, I'm laying it down across the canvas. Now this is very different in how I'm laying it down than I did the sky. Remember in the sky we did sort of zigzag. This is different than just laying down the brush right across the canvas. So the water looks basically still, because that's what we're striving for. Now I'm taking that brush stroke and coming all the way across. I'm making it lighter towards the beach area. And then as I move towards the horizon line, it is gonna be darker. And that's what you can see in here. Now I want it to be sort of a vague line to go across between the horizon and the beach line or the ocean line. So I'm really gonna take both colors and really mix those together. I'm gonna lay down my brush right across where my horizon line is, and I'm going to lay in that so you can tell that that's the line. Now if you turn once I get that line in and I can see it, the space where I need to even it up, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna turn my brush sideways so I can get a good feel of that line. I'm just gonna use my brush right across the toe of the brush to come in and create that. If you do it while the sky is a little bit wet, you can see that you get a little blend in there, and that's always nice when you get the blend. If you want a definite line, you can certainly do it, but I like a little line that's a little on the vague side, because that is really, really far away in the distance. So now I have all the colors in the water that I want. If I want a little bit more of a sense of waves coming up, I can always take the white and come in and add just a few white tops, but that's up to you whether you want to add any more of those or not. Okay, so now I'm ready to go in and work on my beach area. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna use yellow and orange to do that. We also have a lot of colors down at the bottom that are gonna be the cool shadow colors for the marshy grass and the sea oats that are on both sides. So I'm gonna take the blue color that I want to actually be my shadow color for the grass, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that color in right up underneath the grass. And that's gonna be a combination of the blue and red, and it's gonna have a dot of yellow in it so it won't be quite so bright. And this is going right up underneath where the sea oats are. I'm gonna come around and you can see you've got a couple of lines that are drawn that represent where that shadow is gonna fall. So I'm following that curvature that goes around, and I'm putting the darker color right up underneath the grass. And as I come out further into the area where the beach is, then I'm gonna make that color lighter. But before I do the lighter color, I'm gonna go over here and do the darker color. Now, the darker color that I'm gonna do that's bluish is right underneath where all the sea oats are gonna be coming out. So I'm actually gonna do those darker. I'm gonna use the purple, but to make it darker, I am adding the yellow and the red to it. And if you do that to the purple, you can see how it really darkens up that space. So that area you can see is darker than the area that's above it where the light's coming in. Now, to make that even darker, I'm going to add blue and green together. The blue and green with the red really gives us a dark color that I want to blend right in with the purpley color. Mix those together so that you can see how dark it is in that area. So we'll set all that up before we actually put any of the grass or blades of sea oats that we can see separately. I'm gonna do that on both sides. It is a continuation of what we were painting on this side, except all the darker color that we're putting in now is actually up underneath, or it's laying on the ground. The shadow colors, of course, we put in were cast shadows coming off from this area that we're painting right now. So this space that is the darker green begins just to set up exactly where we want all the grass to be coming from. So this is the land in this area. So having said that, there's a good bit of space to fill in. Some of it is greener and some of it is bluer, and then some of it's even gonna have some of the yellow green in there with it. So we'll use a good many brush strokes and colors to make that look like we want it to be growing right out of the beach or sandy area. So now that we have that in, it's just setting up our stage just a minute so that we can go ahead and now we'll work on our sand or beach area. So to do that, I'm gonna wash my brush. I'm just gonna agitate it in the water back and forth, and then I'm gonna tap it dry on the towel. And then I'm gonna move to the area that's furthest back and come out to the front. So this is where the yellow and the orange are gonna come in. I'm gonna add a good bit of white to it. I want it to go pinkish in the back area, so it will have more red into that fleshy color back here first, and then it'll have more yellow, and then it'll get lighter and lighter and just look like it is golden or yellowish. So I'm just gonna take the brush and come in right up in and behind these grasses. Now, the reason I like to put that color in is because I like that to mix up with the sand color a little bit so that it feels like it's a natural part of it. So I don't necessarily like to wash out my brush so much that all those colors can't be transferred. And I don't like to go around the lines necessarily to set up a difference between where the grass is and where the beach is, because all of it sort of works together. So if you overlap with your brush strokes, that's all really a good thing, and if you paint wet, it's really a good thing, because all those colors can just mingle in, and I really like the way that looks. Now I'm gonna pick up more white on the brush and start laying that in. Now, depending on how much paint you add to the brush, you can add a lot of texture into this very simple space that's beachy or sandy by just putting more and more on your brush as you load your paint. You can do it as thin as you want, but it's certainly fun to come in and have just a little bit extra paint on your brush so that you can almost actually feel the sand when you look at it coming in up on this part of your canvas. So I've just continued to add white. Every once in a while I pick up just a smidgen of the yellow so that you can see it. And while I'm painting it, it does mix up a little bit with the violet shadow color that's up underneath here, and I certainly like that happening. I am painting more or less wet on wet, even though this is acrylic and it dries pretty quick. It is a smaller size canvas, and so all of that sort of works together before it even gets dry, and that's a good thing to have happen. I like the cast shadow that's down over here, so I'm gonna take that color that I mixed. Remember, this is the violet and the yellows mixed together, so the yellows tone down the violet so it's not too bright, because this is a shadow. So now I'm just using that as more of a shadow that's coming right out of that same space. The one right up underneath it is the darkest, and then as I move out towards the sand, it does get lighter. And I'm coming and using that to go all the way across, pretty much to connect this side of the beach with that side that has the sea oats on it. So the purple color that we made originally with the blue and the red, and made it darker against this area, I just lightened it with the white. And of course the white had the color on it that also had the peach on it. So once you get a combination of all of those colors, it is a very, very interesting play of colors put together. Then it's time for you to change over and get some of the yellow green grasses going against the blue green underpainting that we placed here a few minutes ago. So to do that, I'm gonna go in and take the yellow and actually mix it with the green. And then as I do that, I'm considering that my medium green. So now I have the darker greens, these are the medium greens. And then of course we'll add some of the light to it and more yellow to make it more of the yellow greens, and those will come up right out of that space. Now, don't be afraid to add the white in there with it. The white certainly dulls the sense of the brightness of it. So that is a great idea in this area because it's not really fluorescent like green. It's toned down a good bit, and so you can do that by just adding the white to that color. Now, another thing is, the reason we're using this brush is because it gives you opportunity to just lay it down and play in it, just like we did in the sky, which is different than we did in the water, because remember, we laid down those specifically horizontally and just let them sit there. And then down here again, we played with the sand, laid a lot of paint on. Now here we're laying on the paint, but we're also laying down the brush and piling up the areas where the grass is coming from and doing a sense of underpainting again. And then we will keep adding layers of grass on until we get enough of the detail that we're happy with the painting. So that's what it all involves, is just figuring out what your painting needs, lines, shapes, textures. All of those are things that are important to this painting, to the composition, and how we use all of those elements of art to create the rhythm and the balance of the grasses that we're looking at right here. So now we have a pretty good underpainting using this brush. We can continue now by adding some of the lighter color. I'm going to yellow and white mixed in with the green, and I'm gonna start adding more of the sunlight basically hitting up through this area. So I'm lightening up that spot. None of this is little, none of this has any detail yet. It's all broad strokes. We'll add little tiny strokes as we need to, or especially as we get up to the areas where everything is thinner as we go to the top. But once you get this feel of the grass moving upward, you can get that without having individual little brush strokes. I have a lot of paint on here from the ground up with all of the greens up underneath, and then the dark greens we have, and then we have the light greens, and then we added the sunlit part where the white was added right into the yellow. But you can see every time I make a stroke with my brush, I'm adding, actually in this case, a little bit more detail. And so I'm going from something that's very general and basic to something that has a little bit more detail. So I'm building the painting. I don't start with little tiny details first. And that's a mistake that some people make when they're painting. They get so technical first with little tiny details that they can't really enjoy playing with the brush strokes and the paint enough. The playing around with this really makes a beautiful marscape or an ocean scene, or whatever you're trying to create with the grasses. But this oceanside scene really works. I'm just building up the grasses. Now, if I want to come in this area and change and have some small little details, I've got the little round brush that I can do that with. So I'm just gonna put that in the lighter green. I don't want this to be too dark, because one thing that's very close up to the viewer, it's one of the things that they can see. I like to start the grass from where the grass grows. So if I'm gonna make some thin lines, I would like to start here and then go towards the top of the canvas. And that way you can just make those go from the bottom to the top. And they can actually run off the page. Runoff is a real good element that's important to painting. You don't have to see every thing in totally. You can see parts of things that are really good. I'm gonna go back into the beachy color and add that in just a little bit too. I like the look of the pinks and tans being mixed up, and that sort of helps balance out the color that's behind it, so that's always good. I'm gonna do the same thing with a few of the dark greens. I'm gonna pull a few of those in with the brush. Now there's, of course, sea oats that are added to this. So with sea oats, you can come in and literally take a flat brush, go in and just load your brush with the light, the medium, and the dark greens. Really, so that you're carrying all those different colors on your brush. And then you're just gonna go tap, 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 like that, and just put in the sea oats on the edge, on the very end of the skinny little grasses at the very top. So you can put a few of those in. I wouldn't overdo that very much, just enough to add interest and to balance out so that you can see that they all are just enough to balance the painting. And then I think it needs a little bit of the darker purple too. I like to take a color and make sure that I carry it throughout the painting. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here when I make the grasses on this side, using a little bit of the reddish color that came out when I mixed the purple and the blue together. So it's a little bit on the violet side. And then I can go through, and every brush stroke that I make like this, I'm actually pulling the colors through and making more blades of seagrass. They all don't have to certainly be perfect. They can be broken over. They can be overlapping, and all the things that you really see out there, of course, in nature. We'll put a few where I just tap, tap, tap on the brush right over where the sea oats are painted. We'll put a little bit of maybe some single grasses down in here. The area down here that's closest to the viewer, The space in here would represent some smaller grasses, so we can build those up right along the edge. And you can see just the differences in the small little brush strokes, how that changes and adds interest to the larger brush strokes that we did previously. Okay, so there we have an ocean view, and it has been fun showing you the different strokes that we could use and the different colors. Now that you have finished your project, we want to see your masterpiece. So please send us a picture either by our email at artcenterofwilmingtonisland@gmail.com or post it to our Facebook page. Keep visiting our Facebook page and our website to see the latest art at home kits. Thanks so much for supporting your neighborhood art studio.